Hello, America. This is Mr. Citizen Patriot. I finally have made it here to Washington, D.C. I've been around for 17 years, born in Los Angeles in 2003. My role is to bring patriotism to a higher level in our country. My role is to wear this uniform for the sake of the men and women who wore their uniforms to be shot at, that I may be free. I didn't go to be shot at, but the least that I can do for those men and women who gave their lives for me is to wear this uniform to remind the world who they are and what they've done. And I've come also to raise the spirit of patriotism in our country, to come together, whether you're on the political right or left, it doesn't matter right now. We as a nation must come together, and what better person to help bring the nation together than a person like Mr. Citizen Patriot. And for more information on Mr. Patriot and how to get in touch with me and participate in this new awakening of American patriotism, go to mrpatriot.us. Get involved with this new American patriotism that we're bringing to you today. Hey, everybody. Good evening. This is Ted, host of Your Power Weapon on Urban Smart Network. We are here every Monday night at 7 o'clock p.m. East Coast, Pacific Coast time, that is, and of course 10 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast, and all of y'all in the middle, you know what you got to do. And don't forget to go like us. Go to put us on all your social media platforms. Make sure everybody knows what's going on urbansmartnetwork.com. Tonight we have a very special couple of very special discussions we want to have with you. And we have a friend of mine that I've known for many years now, and his name is Leo Alexander. And Leo was on our broadcast, I think about the 4th episode. We're not 23rd, I think is now. He was on our 4th episode. You can go back and look at that on Urban Smart Network on the program. Scroll down to Your Power Weapon, and you will see episode 4. But he's going to come and talk with us tonight about a very unique and what I consider very special approach to, here's the big word, y'all, reparations. Ooh. Conjures up a lot of emotion, a lot of thoughts, doesn't it? Well, this man has something to share with us. And we're going to come back to Leo. But let me just bring Leo right now for a minute. Then I'm going to introduce you to the regulars. Leo, what's going on, brother? Come on, man. Say hi to the folks.
Good evening, Ted. How are you?
Better for seeing you, my brother. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. And how things going for you, man?
Everything's going well. We're just now getting out of the holiday season.
Yeah.
Kicking off 2022. So
yeah.
I'm all excited about what it's going to bring.
Yeah, well, we are excited here about your insight, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So we're going to come back to Leo. We want to go down to Unicorn, in other words, aka Ken White. What's up, Ken?
Hey, everybody. I'm really excited to hear what the guest has to say. When it comes to reparations, everybody's on so many different sides, but it sounds like there's an elixir going on here, and it's going to be nice to hear his viewpoints on reparations. I cannot wait to hear it.
Absolutely, man. How have you been poking anybody with that horn of yours?
Yeah. Been some folks, because they're still trying to come at Trump. We won't talk about it that much, but they're still trying to come at Trump and his children trying to get them in New York. New York is on a rampage.
I know, brother. I've been hearing. Oh, get him. Hey, and also we have with us tonight Keith Hardine, co-host Keith Hardine. And Keith is, as you all know, is our go-to guy, primarily around the issues of the U.S. Constitution. So many of us in our country, black, white, and otherwise, we don't know what that Constitution is, let alone the Declaration of Independence. And most people don't even know we got a Declaration of Independence, let alone a Constitution, which is why we are all messed up and don't know what's going on and why we're being pimped out here. But Ken is our go-to man on that. Ken, Keith Hardine, good evening, my brother. Speak to the folks. What's going on, man?
Hey, everything is good, man. And I look forward to hearing what the gentleman has to say about the, reparations and everything, because I have some strong opinions on it as well. But from the constitutional perspective, I just want to give a report of something and make a comparison to why we must fight to preserve our republic, our constitutional republic. For example, this is in the Philippines, and I'll make it quick. In the Philippines, it's very interesting that they pretty much are locking down the people. The officials, the leaders are locking the people down. Unvaccinated people will not be allowed, are not allowed to purchase or to buy, other than for necessities, like food and so forth, and paying bills, I guess. But otherwise, they are not allowed to engage in commerce if they are unvaccinated. Now, that's an extreme way to go, and I think that we're not too far from that here in Los Angeles. Los Angeles would be certainly the poster boy for that.
Keith, it sounds like something in the Bible, doesn't it? In the book of Revelation.
Yes, Revelation. He's talking about the mark of the beast. They will neither be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. Not that I'm saying that this is the mark of the beast, having a COVID test or, having a vaccination. I'm not saying that that is the mark of the beast. Don't get me wrong.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that this is could be a prelude to it. In other words, they are testing the waters, meaning the Dr. Fauci's and all of these people, whether they do it knowingly or unknowingly, they are testing the waters to see how far people will go and, giving up their liberty and their freedom. And this is contrary to the Constitution, namely the Article 4 of the Constitution, which says, Section 2, the citizens of each state shall be entitled. Shall be entitled. You know how they talk about white privilege? Well, wait a minute. All citizens have the same privilege, according to the Constitution of America, not the Philippines. So let's get that distinguished. But the citizen of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. Now, see, we'll get to this in a moment, I'm sure, with reparations and blacks and the civil rights movement. All of that was to codify what the Constitution already said. Yet certain people were being denied those rights. Certain people of color, the descendants of chattel slaves. So we had to fight to get those rights. That's where we get the 14th Amendment. See, the 5th Amendment and this article right here, Article 4, Section 2, already stated that it's already reflecting that all men are created equal, that we all have the same rights and should be, those rights should be protected. But of course, as you know, as according to history, our rights were not protected. So they had to come up with the 14th Amendment. But anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So we'll get to that as we go into our discussion with reparation. But I just wanted to share with you one example of how another country in the Philippines, they have no constitution like ours. We ought to be thankful to God and thankful to our founding fathers for setting up a system that we are now benefiting from. So don't give me this talk about blacks not being a part of the Constitution. We are very much a part of the Constitution. And whether they knew it or not, what they were doing, God intended for it. Thank you, sir.
You go ahead, Keith. Yeah, that's exact. I like that last statement you made right there. God intended for it. And like somebody said the other day, it's like opening up an envelope that says, do not open until Christmas, so to speak. And that envelope is now starting to open up. And I think with all this COVID mess that's going on, black folks, they've never been this united. 70% of us are all agreeing that no, we ain't going to take an experimental drug. All that needs to be done is coalesce into an active, functional organization or organized movement, which is coming. So, Keith, we want to thank you for that report coming out of Philippines and your perspective on that. Folks, this is Ted Hayes, aka Mr. Patriot, host of Your Power Weapon on UrbanSmartNetwork.com. Now, before we take one more step here, I'm sorry, I just got a phone call, a text. Y'all remember Nora Massey, one of our earlier contributors, and we talked about her son Terrell Massey and how he was incarcerated in the hospital on the life support system and all those kinds of things and whatnot. Well, he went brain dead, and as of just a little while ago, Terrell passed on to heaven. God wanted him up out of here. So I just wanted to, share that with all of you who have been concerned about Nora Massey and her son Terrell. Okay, okay, all right. Thank you for sharing that with the Smoke. Okay, Leo Terrell, Leo Alexander, my brother. Um, Groups like Cobra and many others, Jesse Jackson, so-called African American civil rights leaders, and so forth, over the years have been hollering reparations, and they seem to don't know quite what they're doing. But a lot of people are getting individual reparations, and they're pimping white guilt to get some kind of economic return from them. Now, generally, folks, when the word reparations comes up, it's usually about money or material, or it's about we're not going to give our tax money to black folks for this reparation thing. We weren't there when all this happened, so why should we pay? And it's creating quite a tense environment. Leo Alexander, God has shown him something very special on reparations that I think is a win-win proposition for everybody. And it's not a you owe me, give me, payback kind of attitude, but it's a concept, in my opinion, that changes the attitude around the issue and the conversation of reparation, for people are no longer afraid to discuss it. Leo Alexander, talk to us, brother. What you got, man?
Well, this dates back, I want to say, to 2009. I was flying back from Zanzibar, and I was a part of a deal moving some commodities from Thailand to East Africa. And when I was on the plane flying back to Holland to make the connection to Dulles to get back to Washington, D.C., I had an epiphany, because when you're in the middle of commodity deals, you have a buyer side, you have a sell side, and in the middle, for the brokers who were instrumental in facilitating the deal, there's a little piece in the middle. But what I've also noticed in doing these transactions is that depending on the different countries that you're working with, if they're exporting something or they're importing something, sometimes those individual countries will levy an import or export tax. So I started thinking about that. And I want you to go with me here. Let's say a young person was born into the Rockefeller family. And somewhere around age 3, that person was kidnapped and taken halfway around the world. They lost their name, they lost their religion, they lost their customs, they lost everything that they held dear to their heart. But the only thing that couldn't be taken from them was their DNA. And that DNA still made them a Rockefeller, regardless of where they are in the world. Now I want you to think about the struggle. Our ancestors, they were victims of a crime. So I said, why don't we return to where that crime happened? It happened somewhere along the border, the shores of West Africa. They were rounded up, sold to slave traders, and shipped to the Caribbean, to South America, mainly Brazil, and also to the United States. During that transport, and once they got here, they lost their names, they lost their religion, they lost every custom that they ever knew. But one thing they didn't lose was their DNA that tied them back to a homeland where they never relinquished their birthright to the riches of Africa. Once that dawned on me, I said, well, wait a minute. All we need to do then is galvanize the 46 countries in the sub-Saharan region of Africa and tell them, we're not going to levy a tax on you, but what we will do, we're going to levy a tax on every mineral and resource that's exported from the continent of Africa. And that tax will go to the children of the descendants of enslaved Africans.
Teach.
Now, I wrote a plan that you saw, Ted, back in 2012. And in 2010, the World Bank said that in exports alone, the sub-Saharan region of Africa, it accounted for $330 billion for the year of 2010. In 2012, that figure went up to $535.4 billion. In 2020, it dipped because of the world pandemic, back down to $340.9 billion. My plan is to attach a 10% surtax on top of that figure and have each country charge 10% on top of whatever it is they're exporting to wherever it's going around the world. That 10%, after they take their money for the product, that 10% will come to us, the children in the diaspora, the survivors of the American Holocaust. Now, and it's my vision that 10%, because it doesn't cost the US government anything, I don't really want to call it, I've gotten away from calling it a reparations plan. I actually call it an inheritance plan. Because at no time has anyone ever relinquished their birthright to the riches of Africa. So just like after World War II, Europe, Scandinavia were rebuilt with the Marshall Plan, this Alexander Plan will basically undergird everything we need to do, from education to political activism to business development, and also put us in a position to where we're able to work with our brothers and sisters back in Africa to make sure we're doing what's best for that continent when it comes to those resources that are being exported around the world. So in a nutshell, that's the inheritance plan, also known as the reparations plan. I don't want you to ever think that this is in any way a plan that will absolve the United States and all the European countries who benefited from slavery. This doesn't absolve them. This just gets the ball rolling as far as giving justice to the descendants of the enslaved Africans. Now, when it comes to reparations, that's something we can talk about later on down the road, after we have set up the mechanism for business development with our Black-owned banks here in the United States, set that up, and then also set up the political advocacy group. Because right now, we used to have the NAACP that were the advocates for Black America, but we don't have that anymore. We actually have, I think Dr. Claude Anderson has a group called the Harvest Institute.
Yes, Claude Anderson.
Yeah, they're doing very good work. So that is one of probably the only Black advocacy group that's doing work on a national level. So I would like to, at some point, bring them in as well, because where there are already operations in place, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel or replace anyone. We're trying to actually give them the resources so they can do whatever they're currently doing now, do it better. and be more effective at it. And so as soon as we're able to establish this here in the United States, we'll go to the Caribbean, go to our brothers and sisters in Haiti, and give them the resources they need so they can get out from under that debt that they claim that they still owe to France. And then we'll also go down to South America and deal with our brothers and sisters down in Brazil, because believe it or not, there are more African descendants of slavery in Brazil than anywhere else in the world.
That's right. That's right.
So that's it. And I'm open for questions. And how do I see us doing this? How do we move forward? I'd love to talk about all of that. So let's do it.
Well, Leo, well, thank you so much, brother. I'm really honored to be your friend and to be one of the first people to hear about your plan, and I appreciate it. And I remember when we talked in the past, I asked you, well, what do the African nations, Ghana and Liberia and Nigeria and all those countries that were involved, or those peoples, regions that was involved in that whole process, what are their leaders saying to you about that? Have you visited and talked with them at all?
I have visited 3 embassies, Nigerian, Tanzanian, and Cote d'Ivoire, which used to be the Ivory Coast Embassy.
Now, excuse me, sir. Now you resided in Washington, D.C. for a while, and this is where you had the opportunity to go and meet with these folks while you were there?
Yes, yes.
Right.
Fortunate, I was living there in D.C. for almost 25 years, and through my contacts, I was able to set up some meetings at those 3 embassies. And I have to tell you, Ted, the reaction that I got was across the board in all 3 meetings. Who are you?
Uh-oh.
Who do you represent?
Mm-hmm.
And why are we just now hearing about this?
Mm-hmm.
So there was no negativity, but what I got from them was, unless you represent a bunch of people or hold a billy pulpit like a political office, or there is nothing. Well, they can't be compelled to do anything unless you can basically say, look, we need you to do this, and we can show you how to do it. We can help you do it, but they're not going to do it for just some guy who comes through the door with a great idea.
Teach, my brother. I know that. Believe me, I know that experience. Now, however, do you think that they would have? I've heard. I mean, there's a lot of rift between the folks over in the continent and the folks over here on this continent, that we, got this little thing going down with each other. And do they care? Do they really care? The leaders of those countries or do they really care about us over here?
I think they do. I have visited personally Tanzania, Kenya, and Zanzibar, and I remember a gentleman meeting me at the airport. Well, he wasn't there to meet me, but he was there at the airport selling things to other tourists. And he says, and this was Tanzania, all the way on the East Coast. He says, what has taken you so long? Why aren't more Black Americans coming over here? Because they always go to Ghana, but they never come over here. And I understood exactly what he was saying. And he put some kind of cloth around my shoulders and gave me a hug and asked me, did I have an African name? I told him I didn't. And he said, well, when you come back to the airport in a week, he asked me how long I was going to be there. I said, a week. He said, I have an African name for you. And I never saw the brother again. But I got from that experience of just talking to him, and he was an older gentleman, that they really want the connection. And the funny thing is about it is you get that feeling when you're over there. But when the brothers and sisters get here to America, I don't feel that same connection that I felt over in Africa.
I've heard.
And I think it's partly because they have bought into the whole European mindset of, now you're in America, you're an individual, and you need to think like an individual. And that's the only place I could put it.
Well, Leo, and then I'm going to ask Ken and Keith if they want to have something to add here.
Sure.
Okay. Did you go to the African American Negro civil rights leaders, let's say the Congressional Black Caucus, or to the Barack Obama administration, or to the SCLC, the King family, or any of these people? Or
I let me tell you something. I went to the Congressional Black Caucus my first year in town in 96. And I actually had an opportunity to meet Coretta King at that time. She
Okay.
was there, and the late Coretta King, she was a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
I have never had an opportunity to get a meeting with the members, the leadership of the Congressional Black Caucus.
Is that because they kept putting you off, or what?
Just couldn't get, Ted, I know a lot of people in Washington,
Yes, you do.
D.C., but no one could get me past the gatekeeper.
Okay.
Not even, and I'm telling you, I know some heavyweights that.
Why do you wait? But Leo, why do you suppose that is? Because you are a respected person, folks. We have never got into Leo's background, but I think if you go to episode 4, we talk a bit about that. But this cat is known in D.C., man. He was a household name. He ran for mayor. If he had the money, everybody said he would have won. But you know how the machine works. But the point is, Leo, you are a respected person. I've been to D.C. and I went to Congressional Black Caucus. I went to, and they pushed me aside like I ain't nothing, because I ain't nothing, right? But they know you.
No, they may know me, Ted, but
they don't know.
It's the sad part about it. I've been on a couple of other cats radio shows, and there's one that's very popular here in New Orleans, because that's where I am. Oliver Thomas has a show, and he is very well connected because he used to be a politician here in New Orleans. And he said that he was going, after we talked about my plan, he said, look, I'm going to get this to Cedric Richardson, who was the congressman at the time. And now Cedric Richardson is the senior advisor. He has Valerie Jarrett's old position for Barack Obama. Well, he has it for Biden. So Oliver was like, I'm going to get this to Cedric, and he needs to see this, and we need to talk about this. I said, okay, great. I look forward to hearing from you. Absolutely nothing. Heard absolutely nothing back from the White House or Cedric Richardson about this. And it's disappointing, because at a time, and I'm an independent. I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. And at a time when Biden needs as much as he can get to get Black folks interested in voting in the midterm elections, I've got a plan right here that he could endorse and put the State Department behind, that will actually benefit the 45 million some odd Black people here in the United States. But they won't call me.
All right, folks. That was Leo Alexander, civil rights, human rights activist, thinker, and a lot of other wonderful things. And this is me, Ted, on Your Power Weapon, UrbanSmartNetwork.com. Hey, let's a unicorn. You got your horn going, man.
Got
What's
it
up?
right here.
Come on in here, man. What's up?
Mr. Alexander.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes, sir.
I gave you my full undivided attention. I was listening to you intently. I couldn't wait to hear what you had to say.
Thank you.
Let me begin with this.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, unicorn! I told you.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Shirley Hussar, you might know her. Shirley
Yeah,
Hussar.
I know Shirley.
She's a beautiful woman in so many ways. I admire her and I respect her, and she is a strong advocate of the plow forward reparations out of the coffers and the bank accounts of America. Sir, what I just heard right now, being a former peace officer, touched my mind and my heart in this way. There's a lot of crimes that have a statute of limitations. And when you look at it the way the reparationist, if that's the word I can use, the reparationists are approaching this matter, the statute of limitations is worn out because you can't find necessarily the culprit of the crime. And that's where it stuck with me, because it is a crime. But
Absolutely.
You don't want to charge the wrong person with anything.
Mm-hmm.
You have come up with the elixir of where this crime and the charges should be laid.
Oh,
But at the same time, with all due respect, and I always use movies as a way of making my point.
Sure.
Do you remember the movie The Tucker?
Oh, yeah. Talking about the vehicle.
Yes. You have a beautiful vehicle, sir, but I'm afraid you built it too damn good. Do you see what I'm saying? That's why those phones ain't ringing. That's why ain't nobody calling you, because the World Bank comes to mind. The New World Order comes to mind. And it's going to take you headlong with China. China, you know. And it seems that President Trump was right, because all the roads and paths that we have to pass through will put us at loggerheads to reinvigorate the African blood. It'll take us right on a collision course with China's plans.
well,
like I said, we have a birthright that must be respected. And we have to deal with that regardless of the relationships that China may have now with all the developing countries in Africa. Our relationship with Africa dates far back, much further than their relationship with China. So whatever they're doing, just add 10% to that and send it to us.
teach, my brother. Teach.
Yeah, your plan is beautiful. I like it. I didn't imagine myself feeling and thinking, and then both have to come into play, my mind and my emotions, because this is an emotional issue when you consider we are the chattel, slave descendants. There's some emotion there.
Right.
I've always, wondered when it comes to Kwanzaa and all these things that we do to try to reconnect. You can't really reconnect back with a mother and father that never raised you. But I'm still a Rockefeller. I love the way you said that.
That's it.
Analogy.
They cannot take that away from you. They can expunge all your religion, whitewash your names. They can take all of that, beat you with a whip, but your DNA is a Rockefeller, and it's time to get paid.
Teach, my brother.
I am just blown away. I didn't expect this, Ted. I thought he was going to come on with some yada, yada. And for example, he even cured, and you got to help me because I don't want to be disrespectful to the doctor, but about 6 episodes ago, there was a young lady that you had on from Haiti.
Hey, 1 second, please. Brother, can you move? Yeah, stay in the picture.
Well, yeah.
You remember
the doctor that you had on from Haiti?
This way.
Okay, remember the doctor that you had on from Haiti?
Yeah, now you're talking.
He even cured her problem, her issues. She says that America owes Haiti, all these things.
Yeah, right.
Well, when you consider that, okay, he's speaking numbers, 300 billion, 500 billion, 200 billion. Well, hell, in the last 4 years, we're already past $1 trillion. So if you're talking even 10% of that, there's enough money in that coffer to take care of everything.
And this is folks, and this is part of the beauty of what I see that the Lord has shown Leo Alexander. As I said before, a lot of people in this country, now I understand their sentiment that they don't want their tax dollars to go to another welfare program and all that kind of stuff. And whether they're right or wrong is not the issue at this point. The point is an attitude change needs to happen in the conversation around reparations, or as Leo also wants to term it, heritage.
Inheritance.
And inheritance. And there's another word out there I've heard too. But this will take the sting out of it. I think, and I'm going to say it, particularly white Caucasian American citizens, bless their their hearts, they're concerned, and I think when they see that these black men ain't trying to get in their pocketbook. They're gonna relax and say, okay, well, let's talk and see. And I'm already thinking, strategy up ahead, how all this can just begin to really work nicely. Hey, Keith, but what are you sitting over there quiet, man? What are your thoughts about what Leo just shared with our folks out here?
I think it was very positive. I just want him to. I don't want you to take this wrong, because I'm a strong defender of the American founding, and for this reason, America freed the world. America brought the gospel to the world, brought freedom to the world more than any nation in the history of mankind. We freed all the way. Let's start with the Revolutionary War. Eventually, it set the pace for freeing the slaves. The Civil War, 700,000 white boys died fighting other white boys, their own neighbors, over slavery, to get rid of slavery, to abolish it. Lincoln, of course, did with his emancipation. Yeah. And I mean, Ted is always talking about that. And that really moves me. I mean, to think that white on white, and same thing with World War I, World War II, white against white, the Germans against the white boys of America, white on white. And all of these wars had something to do with slavery, in a sense that freedom was the key, was the goal. And whether we embrace freedom or not is, that's another whole argument. But the point was, these wars were, and I'm not including the what do you call it? Vietnam War. But I'm talking about World War I. Well, starting with the Revolution, the American Revolution, the Civil War.
The first person who died in the American Revolution was Crispus Attucks.
Yes,
he was a black man.
Yes, yes, that's true. All of that. But let me make my point. My point is this: if America has a history, we have a history of both good and evil, just like any other nation. But I think the good outweighs the evil that we have done in terms of the whole world benefiting from America. Look how the world benefits from our economic system that we have today, including blacks. Where can blacks do well, in other parts of the world like they can in America? This is our home. This is what we fight for freedom, so that we can also have a full life. As Jesus said, I am come that you might have life more abundantly. You can't have life more abundantly than in America. I mean, we still have the freedom that we can still have a more abundant life here, as far as black people are concerned. Now, there are all kinds of troubles, don't get me wrong, including the fact that there were black slave owners. But nobody wants to talk about black slave owners. But yet there were black slave owners in Georgia, Atlanta.
Keith,
and so forth.
Keith,
if we're going to get to the reparations part, that's fine. But let's just be fair and say that we're going to have to do a lot of research. And there are a lot of mixed couples today. I mean, I might be married to a white woman who maybe her ancestors enslaved my ancestors. I don't know. But you see, again, that's going to be a very difficult, and I think it's a dividing subject. You know what I mean? It just would divide America.
Keith, the question was really asked, what do you think about Leo's approach to it, where nobody in the United States is going to cough up one single penny for this? In fact, the United States will make money. Am I correct, Leo? Is that the question, Leo?
Well, the United States will benefit because of that money coming in, because we'll have to buy services and goods here in the U.S., so, of course, the United States will benefit. But you're absolutely right. This does not cost the U.S. Treasury does not have to write us a check. This is all done through the free market and what's being charged over in the continent of Africa for those commodities being exported around the world.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point I was making before this part of the conversation began, that there is that sentiment in this country, primarily from white and conservative blacks and whites. And there's this whole thing as to why it should not. But this should lay them to rest on this particular issue. I believe that, and Keith and Ken, we should, and everybody listening here, this could really bring some good, positive, not just healing in the sense of kumbayaism, but real practical, on the ground, tangible, quantitative, qualitative progress. And if you know of a way, Leo, where can folks get in touch with you?
They can either email me directly, Leo_Alexander, the number 1 at yahoo.com, or they can, let's see.
Facebook?
Yeah, they can definitely reach me on Facebook. Leo Alexander on Facebook. I'm there. I check in regularly. So yeah, those are the 2 places to reach me. Either write me a letter, email Leo_Alexander, the number 1 at yahoo.com, or if you're on Facebook, send me a friend request or inbox me, and then I'll accept you as a friend and we can start the chat.
So see, folks, what I'd like you to do is think about this. Think about, I believe that if certain conservatives, particularly conservative leaders, like let's say a Sean Hannity, for example, who will rail against reparations until he's green in the face, okay? However, Sean Hannity, can you support this approach? Nothing comes out of your pocket, Sean. You and everybody else in America, on the right and on the left, conservative, liberal, y'all hollered Black Lives Matter. Well, here is a matter of Black lives that you should be more than happy to support and participate and effectuate. Here is a chance, political right, political left, Democrat, Republicans, always accusing one another. Here's a chance for y'all to unite around us and what it is that we want to effectuate our actual freedom. And this Black man has come up with something here, whether you understand it fully or not, but you should be able to sense the feel, the emotion of it, that it is not accusatory. It's not paybackism. There's no hatred. All it is progress for humanity. You understand that, Sean? All you conservatives, you're so mad at the liberals for pimping black folks and using black people. Come on, conservatives, here's your chance to get in on the fight. Go and poke them.
Okay. When I see what we're doing here, and that's why I love Your Power Weapon. This is a beautiful show. I think that if they want to get something out to the young people in these public school systems, some of your shows should be, some teacher should deign to be brave enough to put your show on and let the young people hear these conversations. But where I see a drill bit, and I call it a drill bit, because how do you begin to make this take shape, to give it form? The word Nuremberg comes to mind. When the Jewish people were dealt a horrible blow, it was the world court and the tribunals of the world that held people accountable and went back and got the Dr. Mengelers and went to Brazil and found the Nazi captains and all of that and held them accountable. This is a world crime.
Yes, absolutely.
And we need a world court, whether it be the United Nations or what have you, to actually apply together a criminal charge against all nations that at any time use slavery as an enrichment, an unjust enrichment. And then from that angle, have the world agree that yes, the commerces of the land that would have belonged to these people, and let's admit it, I'm not trying to be arrogant when I say this. My grandfather taught me this. Correct me if he and I are on a wrong premise. But he told me, he said, "Sonny boy, we are the strongest of the strong because we're from the seed that made it through an arduous journey and survived all the hell of this nation's ire. And so those of us assembled right here, right now, if we were allowed to be in our nation, surely we would have come up with a better commerce system for ourselves if we were allowed to use the resources of the place from which we come." So,
well, before we close out here, you have like 3 minutes left. I want to put this point in before you go. Yeah, the world already stands guilty. They've judged themselves guilty already. You know, believe me, look at all the white guilt around the European world, the Western world. The problem is they don't know what to do. The other problem is there is no leadership, no responsible body politic that they can work with. I believe that if we put those things starting right here in this broadcast, for example, together, I believe that God, who is the central figure of the Declaration of Independence, will begin to move upon people's hearts. That's just what maybe it's Pollyannish, but you know what? Leo's vision is epic. It's huge, massive. When you
Never
really
saw it that
concentrate.
way. Never saw it that way.
Yeah, it's massive. And that's how things get done when people are anointed with a massive vision. It causes us to reach beyond our own means to accomplish that which was one thought impossible to accomplish. Robert Kennedy said, men dream things that never were and say why, and I dream of things that never were and say why not. No, men see things as they are and say why. I dream things that never were and say why not. I want to close this up. I'm not sure how much extra time we can have here, but I want to thank you, Leo, for coming on tonight again. And if you want to come back, if you feel there is more that you want to share on this, we can do another in a couple of weeks if you're into that. I am certainly into it. I think more people need to know. We spend too much time complaining about what's wrong, very little time on what we're going to do about what we're complaining about what's wrong. And this man has come up with something to do about
Makes sense to me.
Unicorn, last word, and Keith, last word.
Well, I'm going to Keith. Keith, go ahead.
My last word would be, in my opinion, a great way to solve the reparations problem. Just my opinion is the school choice. I mean, blacks we have been sorely injured education wise. We don't even understand our heritage. I mean, that's why Ted is on the quest that he's on. So one way to remedy that is to allow the children to allow the parents to send the children to the school of their choice for $14,000 per pupil. And that's what the initiative that we have, that we're trying to get on the ballot this year in 2022 in California. That's where we're starting. So I think that is a great way to reparate those children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Leo, last word, my man.
Well, look, the reason why I wanted to talk to you, and I told you let's put it off until the first of the year, is because I truly feel like this is a time, given that the midterm elections are coming up, and I'm hearing a lot of chatter in the community as far as whether Black people are going to vote for Biden in the midterm or support the Dems in the midterm. I am not a Democrat nor a Republican. I'm a Black man in America.
Uh-oh.
With ties to Africa.
Yes, sir.
And my point is that we can help the Democrats who are in the White House now with their endorsement of this plan. They can finally show the Black community why their vote matters.
Teach.
You know, they did something for the Asian American community within the first couple of months after taking office, and that was a beautiful thing.
Yes, it was.
But nothing has been done about the anti-lynching bill, and nothing has been done about the Voting Rights Act. But I tell you what, if you give us that access to those funds coming out of this inheritance plan, we will be able to help the Black community as far as education, business development, as far as also advocacy for Black issues, whether we're talking about prison and criminal justice reform, whether we're talking about voting rights protections, whether we're talking about the disparity in healthcare in the Black community. No matter what the issue is, we will finally have a plan that will address that with real resources.
Absolutely. Folks, Leo Alexander, Ken White, Unicorn, Keith Hardine. Thank you all. This has been Ted Hayes, your power weapon host on Urban Smart. I told y'all, didn't I? UrbanSmartNetwork.com. See you next time, y'all.